Please subscribe, like, and share. It really helps us out. And of course, if you have any questions, comment below and we will answer you as soon as we can. Hi, and welcome to one of our foundation videos on economics. In this short series of videos we're going to be exploring some of the foundation ideas of economics. We are starting with globalization. This is a huge topic, but if you watch the videos and the series it will provide you with an introduction to the key topics. We hope this will encourage you to explore this topic further.
There are many definitions of globalization. Here is one that we are fond of. Globalization is a process by which economies around the world have become more interconnected and interdependent. Economies and cultures have been through a process that has brought them together through a global network of trade, of capital investments, through the rapid spread and dissemination of digital technologies and a global media. Those technologies often bringing down the cost of communication and increasing the speed at which information is disseminated around the world.
Globalization is about interconnectedness and interdependent behavior. What are the main features of globalization? Well, in this video we will look at some of the main features of globalization. You might want to think now about how the global pandemic might have an impact on some of the trends that we will touch on. It's unlikely that we'll return to the globalization of what is being called normal in the near future. Perhaps, we should start by thinking in basic terms about the key feature of globalization, which is increased international trade.
The value, when we add it all up, of the global trade in goods and services was over $25 trillion in 2018. But, the World Trade Organization is forecasting a 5, or even a 10% fall in a value of trade in 2020. But trade lies at the heart of globalization. So, what is trade? Well, it is the production and exchange of goods and services across international borders. These are three of the most heavily traded products in the world: crude oil, soybeans and iron. We typically think of big container ships full of oil, commodities and products sailing around the world. That is a key part of merchandise trade in a globalized world, but trade in services is also becoming a very important aspect of the global economy. These services range from the education of foreign students coming to a particular country to study, medical tourism in the healthcare sector, and also the technologies and the intellectual property behind some of the billions of dollars of pharmaceutical products that are sent around the world each year.
This is an interesting chart from the World Bank showing the total value of trade. It shows the value of exports and imports added together as a share of a country's GDP. The darker the color, the more open a country is to trade with other countries. For some countries trade is very important. In some countries the value of export and import, the value of trade, is greater than their GDP. The trade is an important value, and when looked at, is 200 or 300% above their level of GDP. Those are highly open countries, with huge volumes of trade.
Trade is key aspects of globalization. But, so too is the rise of transnational businesses and brands. Nestlé is a good example of this. The iconic Kit Kat is manufactured in 16 different countries. This is including Yorkshire, in the UK, as well as Canada, Australia, Germany, Russia, Japan, and India. Another really important aspect of globalization is the emergence of the development of global supply chains. We live in a world of complex products, and those complex products nearly always come from many different countries. Maybe this is the component parts, or possibly the natural raw materials for chemicals needed for the manufacturing process. It could also be the design and intellectual knowledge behind a product.
Global supply chains are really crucial. We see the supply chain disruptions that have been caused during the pandemic. This has had a severe impact on many countries. A great example of global supply chains is the iPhone. This was first launched back in 2007. The iPhone is part of a complex global supply chain. The product is conceived and designed in Silicon Valley in the United States. The software enhanced by the minds of software engineers working in India. Most iPhones are assembled in China and Taiwan. In fact, Apple works with suppliers in over 40 countries and across 6 continents to make its products. That supply chain gets more complicated when you break it down into raw materials. For example, the number of raw materials that find their way into an iPhone is truly staggering. This is what we mean by a global supply chain in a globalized world. This is another great example of global supply chains. The supply chain is essentially the many steps involved in manufacturing and distribution, and bringing products to market. In this case, Boeing has a supply chain that covers 5 continents. The wingtips come from South Korea. The center fuselage from Italy. Landing gear components come from the UK. A key aspect of globalization is the development of global supply chains that allow us to provide, and eventually consume goods and services of enormous complexity.
Another aspect of a globalization is the movement of people across borders. That movement, of course, is high. Just a couple of years ago, migrant workers accounted for over 160 million of the world's approximately 250 million plus international migrants. That figure has probably increased. Certainly, recently, perhaps until the pandemic took hold. Here is some data on migration into and out of the UK. If you follow the top line, that's a number of people coming into the UK. Migration into Britain accelerated from the mid-1990s onwards. This reached a peak of over 600,000 in 1 year in 2015. But this has slowed down since the Brexit moment of 2016. The bottom line shows the people leaving the UK. That was also increasing. You have people coming in and people leaving, and when you add them together, that gives a net figure. This is called net migration, and this is perhaps the important measure. That's the net balance of people coming into a country. That figure has been positive, but the figure is now slowing to about 200,000 people a year. Migration is a key aspect of globalization. But, during this pandemic, with so many travel restrictions, this migratory workforce will be much reduced.
Thank you for watching our video. Please like, subscribe and share. And comment below so we can clarify things for you.